Good afternoon. This is a JP Dinnell podcast Q&A episode, and I am JP Dinnell, and as always, I have... What's up, Lucas?
Hey, what's going on?
How you doing, buddy?
I'm fantastic. I liked the pause for dramatic effect.
Well, just trying to compose
I feel
myself.
like that's like if I was an MMA fighter, right?
Oh my gosh.
And like if people have their walkout music, that the only appropriate walkout music for me would just be you sighing. Like the crowd's go crazy, and then over the loudspeakers, instead of it being, like some pump up music, it's just
Lucas Pinkard.
mm-hmm. I'm just running down, fists in the air.
I like how you said the crowd going crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they'd be going crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. They know they'd get to see an early knockout.
What's up, buddy?
Not a whole lot, dude.
What do you got?
So many questions. So how do we want to start this?
We can pick one and elaborate the whole thing like we did last one, or we just go rapid fire.
Let's see. Boom. So I got a few on this one.
Cool.
We'll start with a heavy one. And then we'll lighten it up as things go. This is from Amber Knudsen.
Oh.
How does one deal with the loss of friendships seemingly caused by a person's choices to grow themselves spiritually, emotionally, and physically?
Yeah. That's a good question. That's hard. So Stephen Little, who I've talked about on this podcast multiple times, I actually had him on an episode. Business partner, ministry partner, best friend. His dad had a saying that he used to say often, and I adopted it, and I've said it many times as if it was my own.
Right.
Either change the people around you or change the people around you. Meaning, as you're growing, help them grow and expand. And if they're not, then you're just going to have to change the people that you keep around you. And it doesn't mean that you just abandon everybody right away. But if people aren't willing to grow and elevate themselves with you, like if they are not willing to try to work and try to improve themselves, then you need to do what's best for you and your family. And if you are growing personally and spiritually, and it's creating separation between you and these other people that aren't willing to put in the work, they're not willing to grow, they're not willing to be a better version of who they are, then you need to understand that those people don't need to be in your life anymore.
Yeah.
And that's hard because we have this connection to people around us. But you just have to remind yourself that life is going to require you to grow. And I know Amber and her husband, Lauren, they're good humans that are trying to better themselves. They're trying to be just better leaders, better parents, better friends, better husband, better wife. And as you're doing those things, if you don't have people in your life that support that growth and development, then you need to do an honest evaluation and ask yourself, is it worth keeping them around and in your life and having influence over you and your kids? And at what point, now there's some friends that I've had some separation creep in because we were on two separate paths, and it wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't a, negative thing towards this individual, but it was just, hey, we have two different things that we want in life. It doesn't mean that I don't care about them. It doesn't mean that, if they called me and it's like, hey, I'm in a real difficult time. Could you help me out? It doesn't mean that I'm not going to assess that and see what I can do to help them, but I'm not going to spend all my time with that person if we just don't have alignment. And so that's what you have to evaluate is, do you have alignment still? Are they wanting to try to improve? And at what point are you willing to draw the line because that individual and or group of people are now having a negative impact over your life and your family?
I do think it's one of those interesting things that you'll always have detractors in some way.
Yeah.
Like as soon as you want to improve something, right? When you say you're going to stop drinking, people are like, hey, why don't you come into the bar with us anymore? Like, what do you do? The rest of us are going to hang out. Why are you being lame? Yeah. But also you see this with people that are like trying to better themselves in their career fields. The guy that and I think particularly we see this with like people that are in union jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I've got the opportunity to go with management. And they're like, don't do it. Don't join the man. Like, don't
Yep.
be part of this, right? Like, you're turning your back on all of us as soon as you do this, and those kinds of things. And I think that it's easy to point out there, but it's weird when it's like, in particular, you know, she mentioned spiritual things, and this is something that we see a lot. Is the like, you know, well, you're just going to change too much when you become a Christian. There's one of two things that like the detractors get. Is the one is that, you know, well, if you become a believer, like, we're not going to be able to hang out anymore because we're not going to believe the same things. You're not going to want to do the stuff that we do. Blah blah blah. Some of it's crazy, but there's also a part of that that's accurate, right?
No,
whenever I become a believer, like there should be an evidential change, right? But it is insane that that's the first thing that they think of is like, oh, if you're trying to be better, then that means we can't hang out anymore because I like to suck.
No, I'm trying to make sure that me and my family and you have eternity in heaven.
Yeah, and the second one that a lot of people get, and this is the one that kind of breaks my heart because it's the one that tends to be more damaging and in the long run actually a more effective like thing to put in people's heads is the like, all right, cool, I'll see you in 2 weeks. Like, it's not gonna last. Yeah,
because people are projecting their own failures and insecurities on other people.
But as soon as, and the reason I say that one's more like it affects people more is because, you know, if somebody walks away from their addiction or, you know, they're walking away from a negative lifestyle and they're turning, you know, to try to do better, and they've got their, you know, their buddy that they've had for years and years. It's like, all right, you know what? It's not going to stick. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Then like a week or 10 days into it, that's when I get the call, or one of, you know, somebody in our leadership gets the call and they're like, hey, this person's really struggling. You know, it's been 7 days, or it's been 10 days since they came to faith, and like their buddy told them it would be 2 weeks. Like, what do I do? And I was like, just freaking encourage them to push through. Like, once you get to day 15, you own that person.
Yep.
Like, immediately, like, no, I made it. You thought it would take 2 weeks? Like, I'm here. I made it through.
We're good.
But so many of them kind of stumble at that finish line because they can't get that out of their head that, you know what, it's not going to last. It's not going to last because this person's had so much influence over them for so long.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, man. It's a wild thing. So how do you coach the overcoming mindset in those situations? Because you guys have to do like this type of thing a lot when people are trying to be better, or when there are culture changes that leaderships are trying to make.
Yeah, so it's an assessment that you have to do of yourself and the people around you. And here's, I think the simplest way to put it is, if people don't want you to win, why are you allowing them to be in your life? It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
So if people don't want you to win, why are you allowing them to be in your life? Because now, if you're allowing them to have influence over you, then that means that you're giving them a vote of what you get to do.
Yeah.
You're giving them a vote of your eternity. You're giving them a vote in regards to the happiness that you have. You're giving them a vote of your marriage, of your family. Like, those things, like, I'm sorry, you don't get to have a negative impact and influence over those things. Now, if you have a positive influence into my family, into my kids, into my marriage, and into my faith, then cool. Like, yes, all aboard. Like, let's do this. But if you counter any of those things or have a negative influence, you're gone. And the thing that someone like Amber needs to consider and at least be aware of is, because she is such a sweet, nice, loving person, this is going to be very hard and difficult for her.
100%.
But I would encourage her to find people that are of that same thought process and like, hey, this is what I'm trying to accomplish in life, and just say, hey, let's go do this together.
Yeah.
Like, find a different group of women and a different group of couples that align with what you as a wife and you as a mom are trying to accomplish. So those are the women that you want to be surrounded by and surround yourself with, and also build that. You know, you can also encourage people to be good moms and to be good wives. Like, you can influence. Amber has the ability to influence those people around her to kind of get on the same page. And then, you know, make sure you're surrounding yourself with other couples that are aligned with what you have in regards to what you're wanting as a Christian couple. And for the business that they are a part of and how they raise their kids. And then again, the other thing is other families has that ability to influence. I have a buddy who, I'll try to be encrypted on this, but actually it doesn't matter. So I have a buddy here, him and his wife are now taking care of some family members. They're twins. They're about our daughter's age, and they're taking care of them. So they just moved them in with them, and they've got a little kid that's around 2 years old themselves. And so now all of a sudden it's like you have twin, they're either 12 or 13-year-old girls who have never really actually ever been disciplined, and they had a really hard upraising, and something happened. So boom. And now he's like, bro, he's like, it's made us stronger and closer together, but I'm just really struggling with this. And it was really cool. I was talking to Amanda about it. I was like, so-and-so that you saw at the gym, I was kind of giving her a rundown of who that was. And she goes, oh, you've talked about him a lot. I'm like, yeah. And I explained to her what was going on, and our daughters were listening, and they're like, we should all hang out. That way maybe we can help those girls know to do the right thing. And I was just like, yes.
Yeah, 100%.
And it was really cool. And so that's a scenario where it's like, yeah, we go spend some time with this family, and our daughters go into it knowing like, hey, it's the same thing my parents used to do when we'd be going and spending time with other people that we normally wouldn't hang out with, that don't align with our values. Our parents would prep us like, hey, they're not Christians. They don't believe in the things that we believe in.
Yep.
And so they're probably going to be listening to music that we normally wouldn't listen to, or watching stuff on TV that we wouldn't watch. So, they would say, hey, try to avoid it. But also, what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah, do the right thing.
And so you can do the right thing, and you can also, and there's times we'd be at people's houses or whatever, like hanging out for family reunions or just birthdays or whatever, and our family would prep us with that information, and we would go. And there's times where I remember like my sister or my brother or myself saying, hey, can we change the channel? I don't like to watch that type of stuff. And they would be like, oh, cool. Yeah. Boom. Yeah. Like the movie Ghostbusters, like that movie didn't make me feel comfortable as a kid because it's ghosts and witchcraft,
spirits and all
that stuff. And so, I mean, you can say what you want about it, but I didn't like it. And as a kid, I didn't want to watch that stuff. Yeah. And my parents had prepped me with the knowledge of like, hey, and so when that came
and empowered you to say like, to speak up.
Yeah. Exactly. And so we were actually influencing other kids and even adults. Like even one of the moms was like, why not? And I explained to her, and she goes, I never thought of that. Like, so an adult, and she 100%. Was like, I've never thought of that, sweetie. And she's like, well, what about this? I'm like, yep, we can watch that. Yeah. She's like, okay, cool. And changed it, and now it's like, she had to think about it.
Right.
Whether it was just a one-time thought or it lingered, but it was still. So I would encourage Amber and other people like Amber to, and I'm similar to Amber and Lauren. You know me. Like, I don't like conflict. I don't.
Which is so odd sometimes.
I don't like it. And, and so for me, this was something I had to learn to be able to basically say no. It was like, hey, I'm not going to go do this, or I don't, and as I've become more mature and more bold with just my faith and just who I am and what's right and what's wrong, and understanding why it's important to have hard conversations. It's either I can influence people or I'm going to be influenced. Yeah. It's one or the other. It's not neutral. It's whether either I'm influencing you or you're influencing me. Now we can have back and forth influence and it can be healthy, but when it's in an environment like this, you've got to be bold and you've got to be decisive and you have to be default aggressive to do what is right. Yeah. And sometimes it's cutting people out. Now maybe that's not a permanent thing. Maybe it's just hey, we gotta create our distance and our separation. But yeah, it's important.
I would agree, man. I've got you mentioned that couple. I've got some friends, Christy and Mike St. Andre. And Christy adopted she didn't have any kids. She was single. She adopted her niece and nephew who were twins. Mm-hmm. I don't remember all the circumstances of that adoption. Mike, who also worked out at the gym with us, Mike's like 6'8". He runs a private high asset security company. We should have him on. He played basketball for Syracuse. He's a monster. Yeah. But super great dude, really strong believer. Like professionally, like the stuff that he does with protecting high value people. Like that's his whole business is pretty cool. He's a great dude. But anyway, he had to fight for custody of his son, and the two of them now, I think they both are the legal parents of the adoptive parents of all three of those kids. And in order to hit all of the things that they wanted to do, reach the goals that they had for them and their family, like they had to move away from everything and everybody to like a rural area in order to make it happen.
Yeah.
And there is some of that, like I do understand like there's a loss to all of it, and especially like if you're making changes, you're already in a bit more of like an emotional state, especially if like things are changing with you spiritually. That's a very emotional time.
Yep.
But it can also happen like as things are changing with you physically and those kinds of things. Like if you're seeing those kind of body changes and like changes in your health, you're much more susceptible emotionally to going for that pendulum swinging one way or the other, just because of all the changes and stuff that happen. So it's easier to take that loss way to heart. But I think, you know, just to come back to the thing you say often, if you're doing the right things for the right reasons, right, then stay on the path, and it's going to work out eventually, right?
Yeah. You know, our we've explained this to our daughters because, you know, they're having that transition of some friends from school and church and stuff like that. And we, you know, because we explained to them like, hey, you know, remember when you guys were younger, you said like, you'll always be friends with these people? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, hey, what about so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so? And they're like, oh. I'm like, that's going to happen in life, and that's just part of it. And there is going to be growth, and there's going to be separation that naturally occurs. But then there's sometimes like this situation where you actually have to create it yourself.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's a hard situation that you're in. However, it's a workable situation. And the fact that you asked the question, you already know the answer.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Question number 2. How long is the obstacle course? Now, we did have a comment on, and this is on the Ben Wallach interview. We did have another comment on the Ben Wallach interview that says that running a sub 5 minute on the obstacle course is like running a 6 minute mile uphill at 45 degrees.
Yep. Accurate.
It's that insane.
Very accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you remember like how long or what the times were to pass any of that stuff?
So here's the thing that was so impressive with Ben's time and other guys in our class. Like, you know, there's a handful of guys that we were able to get like super low times in the 6s and 5s. Is like in third phase when you're supposed to be the fastest.
Yeah.
I want to say those passing times were like in the 8s.
Oh, dang.
So if you're getting in the 6s and 5s and sub 5, like it's unreal.
Yeah.
The distance, I don't know. It's weird. It's like, you know, they start off with, I believe you start off with the parallel bars, and then like these logs that you have to run over, like, or they're like elevated stumps that you run over that, and then there's a low wall and then a high wall. And so, man, I'd have to go like run the O course again, but then you're going over the barbed wire up over. Do
you think you could run the O course again?
For the most part.
You think right now you can make it through?
There's one that I just wouldn't want to do. It's a freaking slide for life, because it's just, by then you're smoked. And I mean, dude, I don't want to fall off something that's 3 stories high.
Oh, whoa. So yeah, you guys talked about the slide for life?
We call them sand darts.
What is the slide for life?
It's like 3 stories high, I believe. And you're going up. And the thing is, like, there's no way to climb up. So there's 2 ways to do it. You do a muscle up and you go up and over, or you're standing out facing outboard, you grab, and then you do a reverse sit up crunch all the way back up and over. And then that's how you get up from different levels. Yeah.
Bro.
It's unreal. I mean, people fall off of it all the time.
Sand darts, huh?
Yeah. So then after you do the cargo net, then there's the rolling logs. So as you're running off, they have the ability to roll left and right, and then you go over some huya logs, and then the rings. So you do the rope climb, swing from the rings. You do the dirty name, and then there's a bridge. It's like a rope bridge. So you climb up, then you're running across the rope bridge, You slide down the rope, some more logs, slide for life, and then so when you're in the first phases of you're just going across the bottom, but then there's an elevated one to where you go all the way to the top, and then you go out on this rope and you're laying down on it belly. You're facing down, belly face down. You get onto it, so you have to hook a leg up over, and then you roll over, and you're balancing yourself on top of it, and you're sliding yourself down. And that's what Ben and I were talking about beforehand. We think about, like, it's crazy. Like, bro, I used to put to the point where I was so good at this, and Ben and other guys, where you get up there, and because you're trying to save time, bro, we weren't like hooking on and going. Guess how we were getting out onto it? Jumping out. Literally jumping out, grabbing,
That's
rolling on it, and then using that momentum to pull yourself down. Yeah, and there's times where you're going down, and guys can't get it, and they like freaking hanging upside down now, and they're trying to hook their leg and then pull themselves down.
Because gosh.
When you go belly down and you pull yourself down, that's the fastest way to do it. And so that's what you guys do. That you come off of that, and then there's like a rope swing onto a log, and then the monkey bars, and then there's another obstacle. And then the spider wall, and then there's like logs that you're going over and under. So, and it's a lot of stuff to be doing.
Okay, so I've got.
So the distance, I don't know the exact distance.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
I can't find the distance anywhere.
Well, there's a reason.
Yeah, right. So, but like I've got distances for the swims and the life-saving test and all that stuff. Like all of that stuff is there. So this is what I'm finding. So first phase, obstacle course, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Phase 2, 11, which, dude, that's a lot of time to chop off from 15 minutes to 11 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And then phase 3, what I'm seeing is 10:30.
Okay, that seems right. You know, it's funny. It's like, as I was saying, like, I think it's 8, and I was seeing 10:30 in my brain, but yeah, I think that's accurate. I'd have to check,
which is wild. So like between phase 1 and phase 2, you got to cut 3 minutes off your obstacle course time. Between 2 and 3, 30 seconds.
Yeah,
if you can cut 30 seconds off, that's
so
crazy.
Like the only evolution that you would do, like the hard evolution that day in training, was literally just running the obstacle course back to back. You'd have technique days.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, we're just working on this. You're just working on this. You're just working on this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the old course sounds insane. There's some really cool videos of it online.
Yeah, we would, and that would be part of your PT. Even in the SEAL teams, we would run it. It's like, all right, we're gonna do O course, demo pit run, O course, and you're doing that in full fatigues. And as a student, they're making you do that. You get wet and sandy and run the obstacle course. I mean, it's a freaking legit gut check, man. Legit gut check.
Yeah. All right, question number 3. Why do SEALs paint their faces with green paint in arid urban environments?
Because you still blend in. I mean, so there's a way to paint your face. And I'm sure they're going off of like Ben's photo.
Yeah, the picture, the thumbnail that we used with Ben. Ben's got his face all greened up. We had a couple of those with
there's still
Ryan Parrott that we didn't use where he had
it's still, you're still breaking up the silhouette of the body and the face. Mm-hmm. And guess what? There are things in urban environments that are painted green and gray and black and brown. And, so it's, it's funny. Like if we had a photo of him where it was just like gray and tan and white, people would be like, why isn't there anything black and green? So it's just like kind of like, and I understand the question. I'm not like dissing the question.
Sure.
It's because people use face paint to break up the silhouette of the face. And also there's the aspect of, there is like, hey, when someone's face is painted and if there's pictures and videos of them, it's hard to
identify
who that is. So
that makes sense.
It's like hey, guys will grow out their hair and have long beards for deployments. Well, part of that is because culturally, like in Afghanistan, like if you have a cleanly shaven face, they're not going to respect you or talk to you.
Yeah.
And so there is that aspect to it. Like that's what I was told. And then there's also the aspect of like it legit, like it's a way to conceal your identity. If you have somebody that has like a long beard and then all of a sudden you see them shaving, you're like, wait, what?
Who's this guy?
Yeah. And so there's guys I deployed with to Afghanistan that had long beards, and like we get back and I see that guy walking around the compound with like literally a clean cut haircut and a shaved face, and I'm like, walking by him. He's like, "What's up, JP?" And I'm like,
Who's this idiot?
"Hey," he's like, and he says his name. I'm like, "Oh my god!" He's like, "Yeah, I always get that reaction because the difference for him was drastic.
Yeah,
drastic shift. In change.
Mine is pretty dramatic. I look like a child whenever my face is totally shaven. I did it a couple of
What's
months.
it gonna take? What would it cost
before my boy? That's a Kirsten question. Right, because she never dated anybody with a beard, didn't like him until we started dating.
Okay.
And then before we got married, I was like, look, you never see me with a clean shaven face. I'll shave it for you because I know you really have a picture in your mind of how you want the wedding to go. So I'm going to shave my face. We're going to do it a couple of months before the wedding to make sure that I've got time to get my beard back out to this point if you decide that you don't like it. So I shaved my face. I come back out and she was like, wow. You look too close to my age. Can you grow your beard back out?
I wonder what would it take for, let's just say you all of a sudden decided you were going to have Echelon Front grooming standards.
Okay.
So that would be, I mean, your hair is borderline.
Yeah.
Like you kind of,
I would probably need a little off the top.
You got Steve Ward, Matt Hasby, Cody Gandy. They push the limits of what it should be.
They're going closer to Air Force regs than what you do.
So if you were to be like Echelon Front grooming standards, what do you think that would take?
Man, I don't know. Part of me just wants to do it because I haven't done it in years. But I think the shock for
what if we raise some funds for Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu or America's Mighty Warriors?
Yeah, I'd be into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that. I know you. 100%. And your wife would be like, "Cool, execute."
Yeah,
like she's so
absolutely.
Awesome
I don't even have
game.
to. I don't even have to ask that question.
Oh,
right?
Isn't that cool to have a marriage to where you're like, I actually don't even have to like. And there's like things like people are like, you don't need to talk to your wife about this. I'm like, no. Or
because I know where we have alignment.
Dude, my favorite is when I'll talk about stuff that Amanda's doing or has done or with the kids. They're like, "Did she talk to you about that first?" I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Really?" I'm like, Why
would she need to?
Dude, that's crazy to me. And I'm not saying this, please don't take this as me talking bad on your marriage or anything that you have set up. It's crazy to me. Like it actually, like it's something that sometimes like it bothers me, not in a bad way, like towards them, but it bothers me because I feel bad.
Yeah.
That there are people that their wife can't do stuff without their permission, and they can't do stuff without their wife's permission.
So, I agree, but
this
is one of these things that like really irritates me with some of my friends because with several of them, I know it's a cop out because they don't want to say no, or they're trying to like whatever. That there's that we're like, oh well, you know what? Let me check with my wife before I say yes or whatever. And there are some things that seem like they should be really easy yes or no's that become that. There are some times though that's like, hey, you guys want to have dinner on Tuesday night? It's like, let me make sure that we're clear, right? Like that makes sense to me. But there are other times where it's, the I need to check with my wife or I need to get permission or whatever, that I'm just like, I don't think that that's true. I think if you were to like this is your excuse for not telling us no.
Valid.
And to put it on your spouse, which is a really terrible thing to do because then all of the people that whether it's your family or your friends or whoever, their resentments towards you not getting to hang out with them is going to be projected onto your spouse. It's going to cause some major conflicts in those relationships.
It's very similar to the whole like, well, the boss told us.
100%.
Instead of you having alignment with your leadership and say, hey guys, here's what we're doing.
Yep. I have to do this because that's what I was told. All right. So, you know what? If we did, I'm cheap, man. Right. So if we got $500 for America's Mighty Warriors, the hair's gone. So we'll put a link in the show notes for this.
Check with your wife first.
Yeah. Yep.
It's funny I say that even after
literally, so she's already told me because I was kind of flirting with this a couple of weeks ago. I was like, what happens if I shave my face? She's like, if you want to do it, do it. Right? Just make sure that it's clean. I don't like it when your face is itchy. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So last question.
That would be cool if we raised if we could raise $5,000, that'd be rad.
Yeah.
Because that legitimately helps offset costs, and 500 obviously helps.
Yeah,
for
sure.
sure. Everything helps. But if we were able to do that and then present that money to Mama Lee at the muster in October,
That'd be
it would
stellar.
actually be cool to be able to do it before then, not have to wait until October.
But we could make it like part of the thing is going to do it in October.
So,
we could get a big check.
How would we?
I would just get a piece of butcher paper and just draw the check so that we didn't have to pay for the big check because I'm too cheap for that.
I was going to talk about how do we present a check. Thank
Yeah.
you. Like your question earlier about the size of the watch.
Thanks, Detective Dan. But you've seen that episode of The Office where Michael wants to donate it, and he's like, half of the money goes to buying the big check so that they can present the money to him. Yeah.
Let's okay, so how would we do that? We would, I guess, create a donate tab on my website.
Yeah, we could probably do something like that. This is a Ben Duff question.
So I'm assuming we would create some sort of a
thing to track.
Like a track.
Yeah.
We want to track it, and it would go through.
Or maybe we just reach out to Mama Lee, because a lot of the donations can have like memos in them, right? That you can like put a note. And if the memo is just JP Dinnell podcast, then she knows.
That might be the best way.
Yeah.
Because then
so that way there's no middleman. There's nobody.
Yeah, we're not having to like, okay, well, you're paying taxes on this money. Yeah, but we donated it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. There's no nonsense in the middle.
And then
of it.
honestly, anybody that donates to America's Mighty Warriors, they get, at the end of the year, they'll get a statement for their giving.
Yep. All right. So stand by, and we'll figure that stuff out. We might have it figured out prior to this, because we may figure it out before we record an episode that's coming out in 2 weeks before we do this one. So
what's the amount? 5,000?
Yeah, if 5K works, then yeah, let's do it. Let's see, how long do I have to stay clean shaven?
Oh, that's.
So if we're gonna do it, I'll do like we could do through the end of the year, right? If we're gonna do it in October, if that's when like is the payoff in October, not just like making sure that she knows, but like at the muster. That
so we got to so there's got to be a deadline also for when we raise this money.
Yeah,
like that has to be within a window.
Yeah. So do we want to do the payoff at the muster so that people who come to the muster that listen to the podcast or maybe donated, that like we shave me at the Gaylord?
Let's see.
Like that's after the Q&A with you and Cody and Jamie. That's very beneficial and introspective. Then they just come to the lobby and there's me with a barber. Like, all right, for anybody who wants to see this idiot get his face shaven.
I don't know. We'll figure that out.
Yeah, we'll flesh it out.
Okay.
All right. So last question: you want snails or dinosaurs? That's going to determine the question. Snails or dinosaurs? What do you want? Which one? You got to make a call.
I'm just deciding if I punch you or not.
Okay.
Dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs. All right. Would you rather have a tree in your back garden that consistently grows every fruit in the world, the best quality and in the best condition, or a trained dinosaur of your choice to ride around? Which would you rather have? This is an easy question for me to answer. I'm just curious. There's benefits to both.
Yeah, there is benefits to both. Mm-hmm. I mean, the trained dinosaur that could like fly me to gigs would be pretty sick.
So you want like a pterodactyl?
Something that flies.
A flying dinosaur.
A flying dinosaur that could get me to and from gigs. No TSA pre-check issues. No lines. No deals with my bags. Like, if I could have a rig like that sits up on top of it.
Oh, for sure, right? It's a huge dinosaur. You definitely could. And he's trained. He knows what you want. He can actually plan the flight paths.
I mean, that seems a little excessive.
Garmin will make you something that you put on it so where you can steer him. That is a lot of like awake time though, if you're trying to fly on your dinosaur from one place to the other.
Well,
it's super convenient to not have to deal with TSA and all that. You just take off from the backyard, but you got to be like with it for 4 hours.
It'd be no different than if I was flying. Like, I would love to have my pilot's license so I could fly a helicopter.
Do you not fall asleep like immediately whenever you get in an airplane?
I do, but not if I was flying a helicopter or an airplane, I wouldn't fall asleep.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it cuts out on
That's
some
why I
sleep
drive
time.
all the time, because if I'm the passenger in a vehicle, I'm out.
Are you really?
Out cold.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't matter. Oh, you
Right.
just woke up?
So
We're
you're thinking-
driving? You're
thinking
driving?
Pterodactyl.
Full night's sleep. I'm in the passenger seat. I'm
All
out.
right.
It doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
that's why I'm like, no, I'll drive. I'll drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that would be rad. I would just I would have to navigate and fly it. So seems
So you're cool with that?
seems practical.
Okay.
I
So
mean,
you want a flying dinosaur?
yeah.
All right. Nice.
Can I mount like guns to it? What do you think that would cause?
Okay, so we've talked about Axe Cop in the past. I think we did it on a Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu episode. It's my buddy Ethan Nicole, who works for the Daily Wire. He worked at the Babylon Bee. He's a comic book artist, right? And he made it big with this web comic that he did. He was like in his mid-20s. He did with his 4 or 5-year-old brother. Or anything that they did together during their playtime, he would turn it into a comic strip. So it gets picked up by FX, and they did 2 seasons of this show called Axe Cop.
Wow, that's awesome.
Super awesome.
Good for him.
Yeah. So, but it's all this like 5-year-old's imagination.
Yeah.
So it's this cop with an axe that chop everybody's heads off, right? So like when you're playing that, like with a couple of action figures in the dining room or wherever, versus like animating it, like now all of a sudden the show becomes like really gory because of all that. Well, Axe Cop had a Tyrannosaurus named Wexler, who had machine guns for arms, and
That's
so
pretty cool.
yeah. But Wexler could also jump into space if he needed to.
It's pretty impressive.
I think Wexler would be awesome because he's got like the giant Chinook machine guns on his arms. Yeah. Which we need when we get Alan Mack on the show, we need to ask him about those guns because they sound formidable.
Yeah. The tree of fruit's kind of cool too.
Yeah, but like so much sugar.
Bro, sugar from fruit is not bad for you. And you could sell all the fruit.
Okay, no,
'Cause
that's
so
a
at
great point.
what
If it's
rate-
the best quality and in the best condition,
And at what rate is it regrow? Like if I pull one
Daily.
off and then all of a sudden there's
you have
another
another
one,
one tomorrow.
that's
Yep.
not enough though for me to be selling at a high volume.
I mean, I don't know, man.
How big is the tree?
Do you ever watch these travel shows
Yeah,
where
but
it's
how
like
big is the tree?
you only get one of each fruit, right? But it's every fruit in the world.
Nah, it's not.
You only
like
get
that.
one of each one every. Well, you say that, but like these travel shows, dude, they're people who pay like $1,500 for a strawberry.
Yeah, but they're only doing that one time.
Some of these chefs are buying bushels of those strawberries. But if you had the best one ever, and it's the best quality ever, you tell them, hey, look, it's going to take me 10 days to get your strawberries, but they're $2,000 a piece. Then you can buy your own dinosaur.
No, because they don't exist. They only exist if I pick the dinosaur.
Then you could buy your own scientist and create Jurassic Park.
Seems risky.
It worked out well in the movies.
Yeah,
Worked out well for Chris Pratt, who's going to be in the new Way of the Warrior Kid film coming out in probably a year or so.
That's true.
Yep.
That's true. Cool. So do we have just another quick hitter question to redeem ourselves from that one?
Yeah, I got the one about the snail. I'll save that for another time. Yeah, there was one more. Let me see if I can scroll down to it. Okay, so this one could be a little bit of a longer one. Several of the guys you've had on your podcast have talked about the way that 9/11 affected them, whether they were in the service or in boot camp. Based off of your feelings when you watch the attacks in boot camp, do you believe that your service lived up to your expectations of what was going to happen?
I think it exceeded it because my expectations when I went into the military were pretty small and vague because I didn't know a lot about what could be in front of me because you don't know a lot about the SEAL teams. And even still, like even with all the books and all the podcasts and all the things, like you still really don't know a lot.
Yeah.
And so my expectations were just kind of like, oh, this is gonna be cool. Like I think I know about these things from, talking with other service members to, books that I read and documentaries. And then 9/11 happened, and you're like, oh, wow. I didn't watch the videos of what had happened until I was like in A school or buds. I just never watched it because
Really?
they didn't show us in boot camp.
Wow, yeah, because Tony Cowden talked about they got them all together and showed
Yeah, but
them.
they were in.
Yeah, was Ryan in, or did he see it in?
He was not in yet.
Yeah, okay, yeah, Ryan wasn't in yet. It was Ben who said he was a couple of weeks ahead of you in boot camp that he watched it.
Yeah, so I never watched it until, I mean, it was a while past. So
Yeah,
I would say it exceeded it.
yeah. I remember watch, and this is another guy that we've got to get on, Sujo John, my buddy, who was on the 81st floor and watched a wing of the plane take out half of his office. And yeah, he's local, so
That's crazy.
And he wants to come on. So we need to get him on as we're approaching that next anniversary. But yeah, he watched all of that happen and was talking about how like they didn't realize anything was going on. He said it took him 90 minutes to get downstairs from the 81st floor because the stairwells were cramped, right?
Yeah.
Obviously the elevators aren't working. And they're like cheering the firefighters as they go up, and it's not until they get out of the tower that they realize what's happening. And he said that there's this like surreal moment where he realized all of those guys that they were thanking and that they were cheering for, he's like, they're all gonna die.
Holy cow, man.
And so I was eating a bowl of cereal with my dad. We just moved into a new house, just like the month before. We were trying to get everything done, and we heard about it on the sports radio station that we were listening to. He had just had like a back surgery. I was getting ready for school, and we heard about it, and we were like, we don't have a TV. We don't have, like, the cable's not hooked up. So we ran out to Best Buy, bought a cheap TV and a set of rabbit ears, and watched the second plane go through while we were at Best Buy trying to get that stuff. And there was no, like, they weren't playing any music at the store. They had a couple of the televisions just turned up, and everybody was just watching it. So it's insane. I can't imagine being in that position that you're in, where we'd had a time of like relative peace. Yeah. And all of a sudden it's like, strap up, boys.
Yep.
Time to go. So, yeah, wild, man.
It is. So, all right, I think that was a good one to shift over to. We could just also edit out the whole dinosaur thing. So, anyways, appreciate you guys listening as always.
I'm going to put Wexler on the thumbnail.
Please do not. I will take over that responsibility. Anyways, thank you for all you guys' support, all the comments, the sharing of the podcast. We really appreciate it. If you guys want to check out some other things I'm a part of, go to littlecattle.co. Check out Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu. Check out On the Path Printing, Bruiser Arms, Echelon Front, Origin USA, Jocko Fuel, companies I talk about on all my other episodes. So I'm willing to bet if you're listening to this, you probably watch and listen to the other episodes. If you're here and you're kind of wondering what's going on, go check out a regular episode, give a little more detail on those companies that support us. So we want to show them support as well. Just the community that's being built around this podcast it's humbling, and I just want to say thank you. We appreciate it. I hope you guys go out there, put in the work, and remember to never settle.